So let's start step into the market week with Ladi Bello, who is a treasuries dealer at Access Bank, is live to us from FMDQ Exchange Place. Let's start with the debt market. Ladi, good to have you here. Hope you had a great weekend.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you did as well.
Yes, I did. So I'm interested in the market. This is the first full week. The holidays are over, at least until June when we have the Ramadan holiday. So we now effectively 4 full weeks of transactions on the market. What's your playbook here for the debt market as we start? We're not getting any major economic data yet, but we're going to get inflation around the 20th, and then the GDP numbers. Then, of course, we're expecting a few other a story from the debt management office. So put all of this together and give us a bit of an insight.
Okay, that's correct. So nothing serious happening in this week. We've seen counterparties coming to the market to do or to carry out transactions. It's just business as usual. Last week we had fairly high levels of liquidity in the system, as we didn't see any OMO auctions to mop up the excess liquidity in the system. So we've just seen counterparties come in to utilize their liquidity, to buy some securities on the long end of the curve. We've seen transactional volumes pretty much hover around the same levels as we've seen in the past. So typically you see a couple of billion transactions done on select maturities across the curve. Last week we saw a PMA auction hold on Thursday as opposed to Wednesday, where we had the public holiday. So the OMO maturity of about 63 billion last week, that is typically mopped up by the CBN, wasn't done. So we had liquidity taken out of the system via the primary market auction. Going into this week, we got in FAC inflows of about 300 billion very late on Friday. So we have fairly buoyant liquidity levels in the system, in excess of 500 billion. So we expect an OMO auction this week actually to mop up this liquidity. But like you said, nothing fundamentally has changed. Inflation has been hovering around these 11.2 to 11.4% handles over the last couple of months. So February's inflation came out at 11.31. Headline inflation for the following month in March came out at about 11.25%. So essentially nothing really has changed. And inflation as well, especially in the bond market, we haven't seen inflation have a significant impact on the market. It's already priced in. We're also not seeing a huge change in inflation figures, so we don't expect the market to move in tandem with this.
But as far as the week is concerned, how much do you think the market key institutions, the central bank and perhaps the DMO, will weigh in the current week?
Well, we expect, like I said, the CBN to come into the market to clear up some of the excess liquidity in the market. But apart from that, it's a fairly usual week.
And any idea, Ladi, any idea the size of what the central bank will throw onto the market straight?
Typically, because of the OMO maturity that's also coming up this week, almost 200 billion. So we should see the OMO auction floated around between 2 to 500 billion to mop up liquidity in the system.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Ladi Bello, treasuries dealers at Access Bank, live to us from FMDQ Exchange Place. Thank you. Have a great week ahead. Of course, the stock market is where some big stories are coming through. On Friday, 40 Oil PLC informed the Nigerian Stock Exchange and, of course, by extension, the marketplace, of some divestments and sale by 40 Oil PLC of its subsidiaries in the upstream. 40 upstream services is going. Then you have, of course, the business of a Amperium Power Distribution Company. All of this will be part of the market, a trading theme for investors today. Of course, those who are in the market already would have gotten what we call market hearsay of this. Temple Ashaju is back on the trading floor. Let's get him here to give us early numbers, as it were, from the ticker tape from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Temple, get back into this conversation right away. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Gabe Boson. Of course, we're saying that notice coming into the Nigerian Stock Exchange now, the fact that Forte Oil has concluded a whole lot of deals that it had in the works, and of course, that notice now being made available to shareholders and, of course, the wider investing public at this point. Now, we know that Imperium, which is a major asset of Forte Oil, has now been divested. That, according to the statement we're getting from Forte Oil, says that it's been made available now by means of an SSPA, which is a share sales purchase agreement to Calvados Global Services. That's for Imperium Power Distribution Company. And of course, when it comes to the Forte Oil upstream or Forte Oil and Gas upstream services, that has now been sold to Bunker Oil and Gas. And then when it comes to the divestments and the sale of the shares that it had in AP Oil and Gas Ghana, that has now been made available to Cobalt International Services, of course, a company also registered in Ghana for transactions like that, for services like that. But we understand that all of this still requires some regulatory approval. Of course, the SEC will be involved, and of course, the Nigerian Stock Exchange will have to give its own nods to all of this. However, we understand that there are terms and conditions around these contracts, and it means that all of these have to be met. If you take a look at the trajectory that we've seen on Forte Oil up until last week Friday, you realize that it's been quite positive, which means that this is something that investors had priced into their decisions for investing in on that particular counter, because for a long time it was actually Forte Oil shares was actually trading at 28 naira, and then it reduced when it went on offer after some days to some 27 naira per share. But as of last week, I think it's closed between 33 naira and 34 naira. We have to now wait to see how investors will react to this particular news that really concerns Forte Oil going forward today. But if you look at what the market is saying right now in general, the market is quite flat with a bearish tilt. We're seeing a whole lot of interest in a few companies. Dangote Flour, which closed at 17 naira last week, continues to enjoy some gains from investors, some demand from investors, even though it hasn't hit the margin that it was gaining at a faster pace as of last week. Right now, it's only up some 4% plus in the market. We also have a couple of names like Courtville, which we're yet to know what the news around it is. But analysts have projected that this week we should have a bit of a mixed trading 5-day session due to the fact that some prices have hit the floor, and of course they are now so low. So investors will want to take advantage of these prices by way of bargain hunting, Boson.
Yes, Temple, quite a lot of news still moving around there. We have notices the stock exchange, a bit of them coming through on Friday, which will be, you mentioned earlier in the program, First Aluminum is talking about the notice of resignation of the managing director. Chance PLC numbers are out. They have some issues with MasterCard, which they've petitioned the office of the vice president to help them sort out a $100 million investment, which is said MasterCard has some issues, cases to answer, and they're asking for the intervention of the vice president there. Now you have AG Leventis saying its 2018 first quarter 2019 interim results will be delayed. Quite a lot here for investors to ponder over as we start the business week.
Sure. Correct, Boson, and of course it is something that will put that would shape the prices of some of these companies today, being the first trading day for the week. You mentioned Champs. Champs for some time has actually been recording a whole lot of gains, and of course it informs the kind of numbers that it actually posted for the Q1 2019, which is quite impressive. We've got some new investors in Champs PLC, and of course we understand that that is one of the key reasons why investors are really bullish, perhaps for the sense of some of the crop of those investors that are now in this company is one of the key reasons why investors are really bullish on Champs PLC. Again, if you look at the FY 2018 numbers, they were really positive. And of course, the company even declared some dividends. So that kind of reshaped the whole posture for that company. I'm sure that this new team that the company has will be visiting the stock exchange one of these days, and of course they will be able to feed the stock brokers here with some information regarding the new direction for the company. You mentioned First Aluminium PLC. It's a company, of course, that was down by more than 12% week on week. Given the transactions that we saw on that counter last week. And of course, with the way things are going this week, you understand that investors are really winding down on this particular company because, again, there is an effective date for which the company will be delisted from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And of course, it's part of the reasons why we have seen the resignation of the managing director. Perhaps it's a way of winding down and to let investors, shareholders here know what to brace up for in the days and, of course, the weeks to come leading up to the shutdown, the listing of that company, Bosun.
Okay, Tempo, let's keep all eyes and ears open, as always, on the floor and on Market Street. Thank you, everyone, for being part of the program. Thank you, Tempo Ashaja, business correspondent live to us from the floor of the Stock Exchange. Thank you, everyone, our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. I'm Bosun Omofaya. I will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place.